In South Africa, just going out for a drink can literally be a death sentence. Today, we're going way beyond the crime stats. We're going to break down why public spaces, especially taverns, are becoming the scenes of these horrific mass shootings over and over again. We're going to follow the data and uncover a pattern that is as terrifying as it is predictable. So to really get a handle on this pattern, we have to start with the most recent tragedy. This was an incident in Bekkersdal that, as you're about to see, is a story South Africa has heard way too many times before. Okay, so picture this. It's Bekkersdal, a township in Gauteng, just a few days before Christmas in 2025. This is where the latest chapter of this whole story of violence unfolded, turning a place where people come together into a horrific crime scene. And the cost of that night's violence? It all comes down to this one awful number: 9. 9 people killed. 9 lives just gone in a hail of bullets. And at least 10 other people were injured, caught right in the middle of the chaos. The details you're seeing here, they basically form a chilling blueprint. You've got gunmen opening fire late at night in a crowded bar. They do as much damage as they possibly can, and then they just vanish. This isn't some random act. As you can see on the slide, it fits a well-established and incredibly deadly pattern. And that right there brings us to the absolute core of this explainer. The shooting in Bekkersdal isn't some standalone tragedy. No, it's an echo of things we've seen before. And to really understand it, we have to start connecting the dots. So you have to ask, right? Have we seen this before? And the answer is a heartbreaking, resounding yes. This wasn't some isolated crime. It was part of something much, much bigger. A systemic issue that the data just makes impossible to ignore. Let's look at the timeline. Because when you map these events out, you start to see it's not just a series of tragedies, it's a full-blown national crisis, and it's unfolding right in front of our eyes. I mean, this table just lays out the stark reality. Look at this timeline. It starts back in Khayelitsha in 2019, which was kind of an early warning sign. But then, look at how it escalates. July 2022 was just a bloodbath. 16 people killed in Soweto, and on the very same night, another 4 in Pietermaritzburg. From the Western Cape to Gauteng to KZN, this is not a local problem. This is a national trend. So this is the crucial point right here. We have to stop looking at these shootings as shocking, one-off incidents. The data shows Bekkersdal wasn't a surprise at all. It was the predictable and tragic continuation of a cycle. Okay, so if it's a predictable cycle, what does that attack actually look like on the ground? Well, when we analyze all these events together, a chillingly consistent pattern starts to emerge. So what do all of these attacks have in common? You can see it right here. They almost always happen late at night in packed places with little to no security. The weapons aren't just any guns, they're high-caliber illegal firearms. And maybe the most critical factor of all, accountability is almost non-existent. The attackers often get away, which sends a pretty clear message to the next group: you probably can too. This forces us to completely reframe the entire conversation. You know, the perception is often that these are just random, senseless acts of violence. But the reality, as all the evidence shows, is that this is a predictable, repeated cycle that specifically targets these vulnerable public spaces. And once you recognize this cycle, it leads you to the most important part of this whole analysis. If it's so predictable, why on earth does it keep happening? The answer? Well, it lies far beyond the yellow crime scene tape. The immediate reaction is almost always to blame the venues themselves, right? To call this a tavern problem. But honestly, that's like missing the forest for the trees. The taverns aren't the cause. They're the symptom of a much, much deeper failure. As the source material argues, this is, at its core, a failure of governance, a failure of enforcement, and a failure of public safety. What that means is the very systems designed to regulate these places, to control illegal firearms, and to patrol our communities, they're breaking down. And that breakdown leaves a vacuum that is being filled with shocking violence. So how do you break the cycle? This slide lays out a pretty clear 4-part strategy. First, it starts with governance, actually enforcing the licensing laws that are already on the books. Next, you have to make security standards mandatory, not just a friendly suggestion. Then you need proactive enforcement to get those illegal high-caliber guns off the streets before they can be used. And finally, a visible police presence doesn't just respond to crime, it's a powerful deterrent. It's a chain of actions, and every single link is critical. So, all of this leaves us with one final, unavoidable question. If we can see the pattern, and we know the steps that could break the cycle, The question isn't really why is this happening anymore? The real question we all have to ask ourselves is this: why is it being allowed to continue?